Joel Edgerton's father is a dick. I'm sorry. He is a dick. What does he do? He hit, like when they're playing football on the next morning when the family comes over, he hits Timothy in the head with a football and he doesn't even acknowledge that. That's nice. Jennifer Gardner and Joel Edgerton's parenting in this movie is absolutely horrible. It is horrible. You know what they do? They don't ever have... I don't recall them ever having a conversation with Timothy ever in this movie, except for when he first comes to them in the first 40 minutes of the movie. That's it. They never really talk to him. And when they do, they give him the most stupid advice ever as parents. And, you know, that's not... You know, it's not really that interesting. Ron Livingston is in this movie, and, like, when his name showed up in the opening credits, I was hoping we would get some good lines from him. But no, he's the boss. He's the stereotypical boss. His son is the bully who picks on Timothy in a scene. You know, and the romance that Timothy has with this girl, that goes nowhere in the movie. You know, like when they meet for the first time, there's a moment where he jumps in the pool and she dives down to save him. And he kicks her right in the face! Right in the freaking face! And yeah, I would still like this boy after he did that to me for no reason. I mean, like, yeah, she tried to look at his socks and tried to look at his leaves, and I get that, but why didn't he just back away? He didn't have to kick her in the face! Like, my God! Like, you know, and this movie, oh my God, we cannot get enough of pencils in this movie. Every time we cut to a different scene, they talk about pencils. It is so... I don't think I've ever seen a piece of film that talks this much about pencils since The Fairly Odd Parents, because Timmy Turner's dad is a pencil pusher. I've never heard of any piece of cinema that talks about pencils. This is the first time I've ever seen a movie that talks this much about pencils. It's so annoying. Like, Edgerton works in a pencil factory. Jennifer Garner is like a tour. She's like a tour guide in a museum of pencils. You know, what do they make a pencil out of leaves by the end of this movie? Come on, you know, and none of the characters are interesting. Timothy is so bland, and I was hoping he would get some good points in the movie, but no. The most awkward scene in this movie is when they sing Lowrider, and I'm not going to go into detail about that. If you've seen this movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, I didn't like this movie that much. I'm sorry. I know I'm being too harsh on this movie, because I know it's a kid's movie. It's for kids. But when you get down to it, a lot of the people in this movie are, a lot of the characters, not the people, the characters in this movie are unlikable. You know, Timothy is a bland character. The story really doesn't go anywhere for me. Interesting premise. You know, it's kind of like Twilight. Interesting premise takes a turn in the wrong direction. And yeah, that's what it did for me. Taken 2. Okay, I mentioned in the Taken 2 review that I thought it could have been a little bit better if they had gotten a better editor, a better director. I watched it again, and I gotta tell you, it's not like... It is, like, I don't want to say it's a bad movie. I mean, it is a bad movie. It's very lazy. It's a lazy sequel. And, you know, here's the thing. I was hyped to see this movie. Really hyped. I mean, I was just as hyped as when I went to go see the final Twilight movie. Okay, but when I heard there was going to be a Taken 2, like, when I first saw Taken, I didn't see Taken in theaters. I saw it when it came out on DVD. I found out that they were going to do Taken 2, and I got hyped because they said it was going to come out in 2010, and it didn't. It came out 2 years later. And I found out that the same writers who wrote the first one wrote this one. I'm like, oh, you know, this could be good. You know, they know the characters better than anybody, I think, you know, so they know what they're doing. It's so lazy. The story is lazy. The action scenes are lazy. The editing... You know what? I take it back. The editing is not lazy. If anything, the editing is more than lazy. It's really bad editing. And even if the editing did slow down, it doesn't matter. The action scenes are just terribly staged. The directing, in my opinion, is not the worst, but Taken, for an action movie, it's very laughable, and it shouldn't be. I didn't laugh during the first Taken. I only laughed whenever Liam Neeson would have, like, a good line in that movie or something. But, Taken 2... Okay, here's the thing. I didn't know what Taken 2 was about until I saw the trailer. And when I saw the trailer for this, like, they literally explain the whole movie within the first 30 seconds of the trailer. And when that happens, that's usually either a good sign or a bad sign. It's most of the time a bad sign. It doesn't mean it's going to be a bad movie, because Inception did this. They explained the whole movie within the first 30 seconds of the trailer, and the movie was awesome. Or, I thought it was awesome. But, Taken 2, like... Now, here's the thing. I'm all for a revenge movie. I love revenge movies. The greatest revenge movie, in my opinion, is Kill Bill, because it gets straight to the point. There's no BS in it. And... I already talked about that with Devin. But the thing with this is, like, I understand why this guy wants revenge. And even though this guy is the villain, like, well, here's the thing. The first Taken really didn't have a villain. I mean, there were a bunch of bad guys. This one has one main villain, and I think it was, like, the father of one of the guys that Neeson killed in the first one. Yeah, it was. But these guys are so stupid, okay? What do? After they capture Liam Neeson and his wife and they lock them away, they leave them alone. They don't even have a guard. I mean, they have a guard, but then he leaves. Have these guys ever seen a James Bond movie? I mean, Austin Powers has made fun at this. Like, Scott says to Dr. Evil, he says, you're going to leave them with one guard and they'll escape. Like, it was old when they did it. Austin Powers spoofed it, and that movie's like 15 years old. These guys are so, like, really? We're supposed to buy that? I mean, you know what's going to happen. The second they left them alone, I knew exactly what was going to happen. Neeson was going to get out. He's going to save his wife. He's going to get Maggie Grace, and they're all going to live happily ever after and get out of there. And boring. Neeson... Here's the thing. There were a few good moments in this. I was waiting for those moments where we see Neeson's smart ability, to believe that he's an ex-CIA agent. Because the first one had moments like that, like when he's taking out all his recording devices when his daughter was getting captured for the first time. He wasn't like freaking out like every father should if that was happening to their daughter. No, he's calm. He's thinking ahead, you know what I mean? And there are scenes like that in the second movie. Stupid, I guess. I don't know if they really made this up, but they are smart. I like that. But the action scenes are so lazy. I mentioned this in the review. There's one scene towards the end of the movie where he gets into a temple with this guy. What do? They put their guns down and they get in a karate stance. Like, that's hilarious, and the way they're... And they just do this. They just do that. It's so laughable. And I'm not rooting for Liam Neeson to kick his ass, which is what you should be doing. I'm just laughing my ass off. It's so ridiculous. And it shouldn't be. It's an action movie. And, it's... it's a horrible writer. It's a horribly written movie. Well, it's not horribly written. It's just really lazy. I've already said it before, lazy. I'm just repeating myself now. But yeah, Taken 2, in my opinion, it could have been a lot better. Wasn't that bad, but it was just lazy. And, I hear they're going to do Taken 3. And if you're going to do Taken 3, either, just don't be lazy when you write it. Fun size. Hey, I have an idea. Let's take Nickelodeon, one of the greatest kids networks ever, and let's make a PG-13 movie and slap the Nickelodeon name on it. Doesn't that sound like fun, kids? This movie... Here's the thing with this movie, okay? I believe this. There's no written documents on this on the internet, I don't think. But I believe this, considering the timeline. Nickelodeon was so unique 10 years ago. It was awesome. Okay? And when Hannah Montana came around, because let me tell you, Nickelodeon and Disney Channel have been at each other's necks when it comes to ratings for kids. And you can clear as hell see that because, like, I'll give you an example. Like, remember when Max Keeble came out? That movie is so Nickelodeon-based. I mean, Josh Peck and Xena Gray are in that movie. Snow Day hadn't even been out for a year yet. And they're in this movie. They have food fights. They talk. The kids talk as if they're in a Nickelodeon movie. It's released by Disney. You know, so obviously Disney's doing what Nickelodeon was trying to do. And what does Disney do? They have Hannah Montana come out and the Jonas Brothers get big. And then, right around that point, I think Nickelodeon executives all took one look at each other and they said, you know, Hannah Montana's really big on Disney. Let's get rid of all the Nicktoons and let's put in more sitcoms, hoping, praying the kids don't know how to comprehend real humor yet. Okay? Because what do? They have Drew Jackson VP. They got Big Time Rush. They got the Naked Brothers Band. They get these stupid sitcom ideas, and the Nicktoons just got thrown into the garbage. You know, and why? Why did they do that? Why did they do that? Because now you got Victoria Justice doing this movie on Halloween. A Nickelodeon movie. It has sexual references in this movie because, that's good for kids. You know, I know it's a PG-13, but it's Nickelodeon. This is the company who did The Amanda Show, who did Pete and Pete, who did all that, Drake and Josh. And you're gonna do a PG-13 movie. Oh. You know, I really didn't like this movie. The premise of this movie is so ridiculous. I did a double take on the DVD case because I didn't believe there was a Nickelodeon logo on this movie because this is impossible. It's impossible. And Fun Size, in my opinion, not only has to be the worst Halloween movie I've ever seen for kids, because I can think of 10 more movies revolving around Halloween that are better for kids than this. If you liked this movie, that's okay. I'm with old school Nickelodeon when Nickelodeon was good, and if you still think it's good, that's okay. It's all opinionated. But for me, like, if you look at Nickelodeon 10 years ago, Nickelodeon was the bomb, man. It was awesome. The movies we had were awesome. Well, maybe not as good because we've grown older, but when we were kids, they were awesome. And this movie, a Nickelodeon movie's got sexual references in it. Are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? You know, it's... I don't want to talk about it anymore. Fun Size, didn't like it. Sorry. This is 40. I originally did not want to go see this movie, and I'll tell you why. First of all, I'm a huge Judd Apatow fan. I'm a huge fan of his work. But, you know, when I heard they were going to do a sort of sequel to Knocked Up, I thought, oh, okay, let's see where this will go. Well, it turns out it's going to focus on Leslie Mann and Paul Rudd's characters, and I'm not against that. I did sort of like those characters in Knocked Up, but I gotta tell you, if you're gonna base a movie around Leslie Mann's character, I hope that it's gonna be funny. And I gotta tell you, when I walked into this movie in the theater with my mom's expectations were really high. She was hyped to see this movie. She was hoping really good comedy, and I was like, well, okay, I'll do it. We saw the movie. We walked out after it was over. My reaction was the same. My mom's expectations dropped rapidly. She did not like this movie. She just thought it was so boring. And honestly, here's the thing with This Is 40. The reason why it's in the movies I didn't like list instead of the movies I did like, I liked some of it, but overall, if I had to pick a list to put it in, I would pick this one because when you get down to it, these characters weren't that interesting in the movie Knocked Up to begin with, at least for me.